Hello and welcome to Day 3 of the eShopperReviews 2023 Game Awards. Today we'll be talking about Dubious Honors on the Nintendo Switch platform. These are the awards for some of the worst stuff we've seen in 2023, such as worst microtransactions, worst port, and worst game.
You know, a part of me always wonders if it's maybe a bit mean-spirited to dedicate an entire day just to the bad stuff, just to shaming the game companies, as if they even listen to this. And the more I think about it, the more I kind of feel confident that that is the right way to go. It's only 1 out of 5 days. And just like we need to celebrate the good, we also need to warn people about the bad. Because if we turn a blind eye to the bad stuff, then it just keeps happening. And it's important to warn people about stuff to watch out for, just like it's important to warn people about things they might be missing out on if they don't try it. So, Jen, what is our first horrible award?
Our first one is Worst Monetization / Scam.
Previously, this award was just worst microtransactions, but things have evolved over the last year, and I feel like I have to expand it to include some of the other bad behaviors that are kind of trying to exploit the system to get more money out of gamers that they might not otherwise spend. So this runs the gamut from horrible monetization, including microtransactions, really sleazy practices that kind of sneak into your wallet and try to get more money out of you, or practices that sneak onto the eShop and try to inflate how much the game appears there, or even just try to trick you into thinking the game is something that it's not. So this is kind of a mix of all those nasty things rolled up into one category.
So, who won?
Well, first I'm going to go through the runners-up. The runners-up for worst monetization or scam are Baseball Club, Frag Pro Shooter, Disney Speedstorm, Hentai World, and Jet Ski Racing Aqua Rush.
Why am I not surprised that Hentai World made that list?
You might be more surprised that other hentai games that I reviewed this year didn't make the list, but we'll be talking about those in a bit too. However, those were not the winners of this award. The winner of Worst Monetization or Scam goes to Professor Miyamoto's Soroban and Flash Anzan. Now, to be clear, this is not Shigeru Miyamoto. The guy who created Mario and Donkey Kong presumably has nothing to do with this game. Rather, this is a game that technically poses as a free-to-play game, and it poses as an educational game, for young kids. It's basically, hey, what's 1 + 1? And then you're supposed to answer 2. That it's for very young kids. But I'm mentioning it here in Worst Monetization and Scam, and that should give you a hint at how bad things are going when a game that's aimed for very young children is doing some sketchy, schemy things. Picture this. This is the most basic, bare bones. It's basically like a flashcard simulator. Just, again, what's 1 + 2? And you answer 3. However, it's put out there as free to play, but to play past the first initial short playthrough, you have to purchase tickets. They're basically renting out the game to you, and it's barely a game at all. The fact that they would actually try to nickel and dime you on a game that is so bare bones, and it's supposed to be for children, for young children, and they're trying to scheme their way into making a bunch of money off you instead of just selling the thing. And believe me, if you played this game, you would never want to spend a penny on it, which I suppose is its one saving grace, is it is free to play, so to speak. But the moment you try it out, you're like, nope, and I will never go back. And thankfully, because of that, no one will spend money on this horrible game. But believe me, they wanted you to. And the fact that they're trying to do that makes me concerned that someone else might see that and try it again on some other game and make it work. And I want to nip that right in the bud. This is horrible. no game should be charging like a ticket system like this. That's absurd.
Next up, we have the most overrated game, which I anticipate is probably going to get a few people upset.
With this game, it's kind of the flip side of the most underrated game category that I had earlier in the week. And the idea behind this is these are games that all have a rating on Metacritic, and I feel like the rating is way higher than it deserves to be. Now, the rating specifically that I'm looking at is for the Nintendo Switch version of the game. The other versions might have a different rating, but I am specifically focused only on that version. So, the runners-up in this category are Bang On Balls Chronicles, which got a Metacritic score of 86, Never Awake, which got a Metacritic score of 88, Ghost Trick Phantom Detective, which got a score of 86. I feel like out of all of the games I'm going to name here, that one might draw the most attention because a lot of people were saying, oh, that's Game of the Year material right there. And I'm looking at that going, are we playing the same game here? However, that was not the winner of this category. The winner for most overrated game on Nintendo Switch is Rakuen Deluxe Edition, which got an 86 on Metacritic.
I haven't even heard of this game.
I can't say that I had either before I played it, but apparently enough critics had played it and loved it that it got a really good rating. So I thought, sure, I'll give it a try. And starting it up, it's very clearly a game that was made in RPG Maker, which isn't unique or new. There have actually been a few good games that were made in RPG Maker. The problem is everything about this game is so tedious and slow-paced and poorly constructed. It has a very slow walking speed. It's full of just terrible fetch quests. The puzzles are nonsensical. There are rooms that serve no purpose other than to take up time as you walk through them. It is just so tedious and boring, and I know that some people really just fell over themselves for this game because of its deep and meaningful plot. But the gameplay is just so darn tedious. It is so frustrating. I imagine a lot of people just did not have the patience to even get to that. I was really disappointed with how many people had really applauded this game, and I'm just looking at it going, this was horrible. I hated this.
Next up, we have the Laziest Copycat.
These are games where they were clearly designed to mimic another game that's already out. And this could have been another game that's popular. It could have been another game that the same company released, and they just basically copy-pasted the game and made another one just like it. Yeah, we got a little of both here. The runners-up in this category are Loot Box Simulator Crimson Fire and Loot Box Simulator Heroes of the Dark Age, Velone, Daily Dadish, Pinball FX, Cat Lord, and the winner for Laziest Copycat is Only Way Up Parkour Jump Simulator.
That is a horrible name.
Oh, it absolutely is. And the company that puts out this game does a lot of games with those same long titles. We've commented on it in the past, where they try and throw as many words in the title as possible to get it to show up in searches.
Yeah, of course. Sleazy.
The game that this is clearly copying was a game that got popular, I believe, earlier this year called Only Up. And it came out on PC, and it became this big streamer trend where a lot of streamers were playing it and really super popular, but it got taken down because of apparently a copyright dispute. So that game actually technically doesn't exist any longer. And in the months that game has been gone, multiple copycats have sprouted up in its wake. And I only got the chance to play this one. There's another one on the Nintendo Switch as well. But just the fact that this game is titled in a way that is designed to confuse players into thinking it is that game when it's not. And it's not even a good knockoff. It's really poorly made. The gameplay isn't great. The game design is pretty poor. The graphics are ugly. Yeah, just all kinds of things I can point to about this being a bad game, but it's a bad game, poorly made, that is clearly trying to trick people into thinking that it's a different, much better game. So I feel that's deserving of this award.
Next up, we have the worst port/remake.
Now, this category is not necessarily for bad games. In fact, multiple games that I have here are actually really good games. But man, it's kind of hard to see that on the Nintendo Switch because the version that the Nintendo Switch got just has so many problems. Either the graphics and performance are bad, features have been cut, in some cases the game is super buggy. These are games that just really disappointed, not because of the games, but because of the port to Nintendo Switch.
What are they?
So the runners up here are Sherlock Holmes: The Awakened, Crypto Mining Simulator, Ultimate Trading Strategy Tycoon Craft and Idle Game 3D,
Wow.
Dobby X Escape Spooky Adventure, Borderlands 3 Ultimate Edition, and Bang on Balls Chronicles.
Wait, Borderlands got on that list?
I really like the Borderlands games, but the port to Nintendo Switch chops the multiplayer basically in half. There's no local multiplayer, and the online multiplayer is cut down to 2 players. And that on top of the graphical downgrade, it's like the heart and soul of that game got ripped out. However, that was not the game that won this award. The award for Worst Port or Remake on Nintendo Switch goes to Trine 5: A Clockwork Conspiracy.
Why is that?
I really love the Trine series, and I thought Trine 4 in particular was a magnificent port that looked amazing on Nintendo Switch. In fact, I think I gave that one some graphical awards the year it came out. And that's in addition to how much I loved the game itself. And Trine 5 looked like it was going to be following suit with that. It looked great coming up, but once I got my hands on the Nintendo Switch version, it just seemed wrong in multiple ways. First of all, there's a graphical glitch where every time the camera shifts to a different scene, the entire scene has really ugly textures for a second before they load in. Every time. It doesn't matter if it's like a cutscene where it's just going shot counter shot for 2 people having a conversation. It's like one person will say something, then the next person says something, and while they're talking, everything looks ugly for a second. Then it'll go back, and the other person's talking, and it'll look ugly for a second. It's just really, really poorly made, and you have to be looking at this thinking, they must have seen this before they released it. This isn't the kind of thing you can miss. And that's not the only problem with this game. Another problem is that it has some important features like a new upgrade system that is completely inaccessible unless you basically delete the game and reload it or go through some ridiculous hoops to get it to work. And it's like, how was this even allowed to release like this on the eShop? They should have kept this in the oven at least a little while longer to make sure that it didn't have these embarrassing problems on the Nintendo Switch. And it was just a huge jump down from being amazingly impressed with Trine 4 to, this is what they're giving us for Trine 5.
That's depressing.
Oh, it really is. And that's part of the reason I think we'll be hearing more about Trine 5 in a little bit.
All right, so next up we have Most Overpriced.
With these games, they're not necessarily bad games, although looking over this list, I don't think a single one of them is a game that I would recommend anyone to buy. This year, all of the games on this list are not great games. However, they're not on this particular list because they're bad games. They're on this list because there are games that are priced way too high for what they're offering. And it is so absurdly disjointed that I felt like I needed to highlight just how bad the pricing is on this.
So your runners-up are?
The runners-up for Most Overpriced Game are Hentai Girls at $20.
What?
Hentai World at $15. Daily Dadish at $10. Rafa's World at $10. And Cat Lord at $15.
I mean, they're not bad in terms of price.
They're bad for what you're getting for that money. Just pointing to the last one, Cat Lord, as an example, that is a $15 game that is a horrible, low-quality knockoff of Vampire Survivors, which is a $5 game.
Ooh, okay.
It is a lower quality version of something you can get at 1/3 the price. So that's one of them. However, that was not the game that I declared as the most overpriced game on Nintendo Switch in 2023. That honor goes to NOS, New Operating System, which is priced at $40.
Wow.
So here's the thing. If NOS was an actual operating system, $40 might be understandable. That's not bad for an operating system. However, NOS isn't an operating system, it's a gimmick. It is basically a collection of small apps and mini-games with a quote-unquote operating system as a framing device. I wouldn't spend $5 on what is included in this package. However, it gets even worse than that, which is clearly the only reason that this is priced at $40 is so that they can make it seem like a real bargain when they drop the price to a sale price of $2, which they do on a regular basis. So, wow, it seems like a great deal, except no, it's not, because the only reason that they could discount it that much was because it was so ridiculously bloated in price to begin with.
I can't imagine why somebody would buy a game like that.
It gets worse.
Oh, great.
Not only are they gaming the system by dropping it and raising the price over and over again to make it look like a good deal when it goes down, they have also released this game numerous times on the eShop in different quote-unquote bundles that just bundle it with one of its free DLCs, which are only free DLCs because they separated them out from the game specifically so they would have an excuse to make these bundles. So the eShop is junked up with this terrible overpriced game that is gaming the system to try and make people think they're getting a deal. And it's like so many times over, this game tries to find ways to trick people into thinking they're getting a much better deal than they actually are. And believe me, you are not. Even if you find the gimmick of this game to be amusing, trust me, it is not worth the ridiculous price they put on it. I'm not even sure it's worth the $2 that it goes on sale for.
God, that's so sleazy.
Mm-hmm.
The next award is the Who Asked for This award, which is new for 2023.
Yeah, I kept coming across games that made me ask this question. I've had a few in years past, but this time it just came up over and over again. And I'm like, I'm going to make an award for this. There are some games where you're like, wow, this is really niche. And then there are some more where you're like, I can't think of anyone who would actually want to play this. The runners-up in the Who Asked for This award category are Loot Box Simulator Crimson Fire and Loot Box Simulator Heroes of the Dark Age, Chess Maiden, Harem Girl Isabella, The Love Date Simulator with Girls, and Professor Miyamoto's Soroban and Flash Anzan.
The winner is...
The winner in the Who Asked for This award is... Everybody 1-2 Switch.
Oh, that was horrible.
Yeah, Jen and I got the chance to play this, and I don't think... Jen, did you play the original 1-2 Switch?
No, and I'm not sure if I ever want to.
Yeah, you're not missing much. The original 1-2 Switch was released at the launch of the Nintendo Switch, and it was the other game. Most people had Zelda, but people who wanted something else from Nintendo had that, and it was basically a glorified tech demo that they really should have just included with the system as oh, that's interesting, and you play with it for maybe an hour or two before setting it down and never going back to it. If it was a free tech demo, hey, that would have been fine. But they were selling it for like $40 or $50. It was ridiculous. And I don't think anyone loved it. Maybe a few people thought, that's okay, I guess. And nobody that I ever heard was just itching for a sequel. In fact, when Nintendo was developing it, there was word that was leaking out from the company that their own internal testers were telling them that the game was crap. Their own focus groups were saying, this game is boring, no one will want to play this. And it got to the point where Nintendo themselves were kind of iffy about even releasing this, or maybe just like, maybe we just cancel this one, even though it's pretty much done. I don't know that we really want to put out a game that's this bad. But I guess for whatever reason, they decided to do it this year, and we got to play it. And I mean, it's not the worst game I've ever played, but it's definitely a game that no one asked for, and I don't think playing it that anyone really appreciated it being made. It's a game for no one that's likely to please no one, and a couple years from now, I bet everyone will have forgotten about it all over again.
They might.
Oh, are you going to remember this game a couple years from now? Hey, Jake, why don't we get out 1-2 Switch again?
I'll remember it, but I won't want to play it.
You know, maybe when we do our next stream, we can stream everybody 1-2 Switch. What do you say, Jen?
I hate you.
Yeah, see, Jen's not asking for it. I'm certainly not asking for it, but we still got it. Thanks, Nintendo.
All right. Why is this taking so much space on my memory card award?
I think I mentioned in one of the previous awards that we did this week, space on the Nintendo Switch is at a premium. You only have so much space that comes on your system. I think it's 32 gigs with a standard Switch and 64 gigs on a Switch OLED model. And you can expand that with a micro SD card, but there's only so much you can expand it. And with some games, you look at them and you're like, this is taking up way more space than what the game itself actually justifies. So that's what this category is for.
The runners-up are...
So I only have 2 runners-up and 1 winner in this category. The runners-up are Hentai World at 975 megabytes, Unalive 010 at 1.69 gigabytes.
The winner?
The winner of the Why is this taking up so much space on my memory card award is WBSC eBaseball Power Pros, which is...
These titles need to stop.
Which is 2.724 gigabytes on your Nintendo Switch. In the grand scheme of things, maybe not the biggest, but when you look at how this compares with other games like it on Nintendo Switch, okay, I'll just get to it. For those who are not aware, WBSC eBaseball Power Pros, this is a budget baseball game. It's actually not a bad little baseball game, and it sells for $1, and at that price, it's not a bad bargain. It's not on par with the other baseball games on the system, but it's not bad. And in order to get it to that price, the graphics in the game are pretty bad. These are extremely low poly chibi character designs that just look ugly. They're not impressive at all. And that's fine, but then why is the game so freaking big? Now, I have to assume it's because there is an announcer in the game, like an actual vocal announcer. But it's not a very good announcer. And when you compare this game, which looks horrible, against, say, for example, Super Mega Baseball 2, which came out years ago, but is actually smaller, and it looks way better than this does, it just makes you go, why the heck did they feel like this game needed that much space? It looks worse, and it's a bigger game. And yeah, it was an easy choice for a game that's just taken up way too much space on the memory card.
The most disappointing award.
I try not to build up too high of an expectation for any game, but sometimes it's hard not to do so. Even just hearing some of these titles, I was like, ooh, I wonder what they'll do with that idea. And it fell short of that expectation. For others, they are the latest game in a really great series that just does not live up to the other games in the franchise. The runners-up in the most disappointing category are Startup Company Console Edition, SteamWorld Build, Bang on Balls Chronicles, Oxenfree 2 Lost Signals, and Borderlands 3 Ultimate Edition.
Oh, the fact that Borderlands has made mention twice in this makes me sad.
You know, it's a very good game. It's just, man, the Nintendo Switch version does not do it justice. And it gets an extra boost in this category, so to speak, because Borderlands 3 is just, it's not Borderlands 2. Borderlands 2 is still by far the apex of that series.
Yeah, I'd have to agree.
However, that was not the game that won this award. The winner of Most Disappointing Game on Nintendo Switch in 2023 is Trine 5, A Clockwork Conspiracy.
Why that game?
I think I explained myself pretty clearly earlier. That
Yeah, you did.
Trine 4 was a really great port and a really great game, and Trine 5 was a miserable port. And just how bad a port it was, oh, it was such a disappointing experience playing this game. And I loved the previous one so much that it was just such a shame.
Nintendo's biggest blunder.
I gotta be honest, I felt like Nintendo didn't do much that truly upset me this year. There were a few things, and I'll get to those in a moment. But while this was a year where a lot of companies were laying off employees left and right, you had all kinds of news about companies that are abusing their employees still. By comparison, the stuff that I have here for Nintendo isn't anywhere near as bad, but they still did some stuff that was kind of meh. So that's what we got here.
The runners-up are...
First of all, we have still no sign of Metroid Prime 4, yet again. I feel like by this point we know why that is, because they're probably saving it for the launch of their next system. But I still got to mention it here because I think it's something like 5 years and we still haven't heard anything about it. And it's definitely starting to make people wonder what the heck is going on. Then after that, we have Nintendo quietly kills Pac-Man 99. Yeah. Then something I spent quite a lot of time talking about, which is Nintendo shutting down the Wii U and Nintendo 3DS eShops and online services.
And the winner of Nintendo's biggest blunder is?
Nintendo's biggest blunder, in my opinion, in 2023 is Nintendo sets strict new rules forbidding most tournaments. This is the second year in a row that the winner of this award is Nintendo taking a huge dump on their pro gamer community. I don't know what it is, but Nintendo just seems to hate all the people who love playing their games competitively. And this year, they pretty much gave a big finger to everyone it's tournaments in general, but we know specifically they're targeting the Smash Brothers community because they basically said that you can't have a tournament with a prize that's bigger than this amount. You can't have advertisers. You can't sell merch. You can't sell food. You need to have, just all sorts of ridiculous rules to make sure that anyone organizing tournaments couldn't profit off of it, or in many cases, even break even, which basically kills the tournament community for any Nintendo game, except for any company that Nintendo deems worthy to officially make their tournament company, which is a really ugly and monopolistic practice that sadly has become all too common for Nintendo when it comes to their tournament scene.
I have to wonder why they do that.
I could wager a guess, which is it's about control, and I do think that the Smash Brothers community itself holds some of the blame here because they have been responsible for some really toxic behavior that I'm sure Nintendo wants absolutely nothing to deal with. But I feel like this is going way too far in the other direction.
All right, our last award is the worst game.
I actually had to go back and forth over this. There are a couple of games in this category that could have won this. There's one that's virtually unplayable. There's one that's completely pointless. But the one that I ended up giving the win to was one where it's bad in so many different ways that it's just ridiculously laughable.
Really?
Well, let's get to it, shall we?
Yes, please.
The runners-up for worst game on Nintendo Switch in 2023 are Loot Box Simulator, Crimson Fire, and Loot Box Simulator, Heroes of the Dark Age, Hentai World, Hentai Girls, Crypto Mining Simulator, Ultimate Trading Strategy, Tycoon Craft, and Idle Game 3D, The Love Date Simulator with Girls, and the winner for Worst Game on Nintendo Switch in 2023 is Chess Maiden.
Why?
I'm surprised you don't remember me ranting about this during the podcast that I played this game and reviewed it.
Okay. Yes, I'm starting to remember now.
Yeah, this is the game where the promise of the game, or at least what they're insinuating, is that you're going to be playing a game of chess against this sexy anime-style girl, and you're going to be trying to keep your focus on the game while she wiggles her body or something. I don't know. But presumably that's the kind of idea that they want to plant in your head, is that it's going to be sexy, but it's also going to be a game of chess. And they fail on every level at this game. First of all, I don't know who is going to find this to be sexy, because the titular chess maiden here moves and acts like a creepy robot. It is very unsettling and not at all sexy. There's not anything revealing or anything actually sexual about it, aside from the fact that this is a anime-style girl with a kind of large chest, dressed up as a maid for some reason. But even putting that aside, okay, maybe that works for you. This is a horrible game of chess. And that might seem like a silly thing to point to, but it's like one of the two words in the title, and I don't know that I've ever played a chess game that screws up chess this badly. It's missing basic things like the castling move, or I think en passant was another one that's missing. And okay, fine, maybe it has a simplified version of that, which is already in and of itself ridiculous for chess. It's thousands of years old. Why would you have to make a simplified version of a game that everybody knows the rules to? But okay, fine. When I get the game to a point where I'm about to checkmate the chess maiden, she tries multiple times over to make illegal moves to get out of it. And to the game's credit, it doesn't let her, but the fact that she's even trying is kind of ridiculous. But once it became clear to the AI-controlled opponent, it's not multiplayer, by the way, that's another problem. Once it became clear that there was no way for it to win, it decided to find the only way that it could to not lose, which was the chess maiden refused to make another move. It basically chose to hang up the game and make it unwinnable because it refused to make another move. It's like a childish way. I'm sure that if it could just toss the table up into the air and just say, screw it, I'm leaving, it would have, but this game doesn't have that much personality. I don't know that I've ever seen a game that fails something so basic in such a spectacularly bad way. And then on top of that, failing another thing that it's aiming to do in a really bad way as well. It is impressive how badly this game fails to do anything it purports to try to do. Even though there were other games on this list that I could have easily put into this spot, like Crypto Mining Simulator runs so badly that it's almost unplayable. The Love Date Simulator with Girls, that's a game where I just don't see any point to it. It's like really badly trying to mimic what it's like to be on Tinder or something, and absolutely failing at it. With all of that, yes, I could have awarded it to one of those two, but I had to go for the one game that failed in the most spectacular, ridiculous, absurd, how on earth did they not see this way? Although I'm sure they did see it and they just didn't care.
Are you done?
Yes, rant over.
All right, that does it for this day of the 2023 eShopperReviews Game Awards. Thank you again for joining us, and please check back throughout the week for additional awards. Catch you all next time.
Yeah. I mean, yes, please do.